Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Solmaz Tagavi. I'm an attorney with Tagavi Immigration Law. If you guys can hear me all right, see me all right, if you can just drop in the chat a thumbs up or an okay. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm very excited to start our very first webinar on employment-based cases. And like I said, my name is Solmaz Tagavi. I am the law firm owner of Tagavi Immigration Law. And we do have two co-hosts that will be joining us shortly. We probably have a couple additional people that will be joining us as well. So let's give them a few minutes to join. And I'll introduce them. I'll also introduce Marcelo. He is our intake specialist at Tagavi Immigration Law. And once we go through, we're going to give you guys some information. We're going to talk about the criteria. We'll ask some questions and then we'll open it up to you guys to ask some questions. But then after this webinar, if you're interested in working with us and you think that you may qualify for an employment-based immigration case, then you'll be reaching out to Marcelo at our law office. So I will be putting that information in the chat towards the end of the webinar. Marcelo, if you can drop our screening link. So we'll do a free 15-minute screening. In that screening, we want you to answer some questions. There's about a few questions, basic questions. We'll want a link to your LinkedIn, and we'll also want your resume or CV. So make sure that's updated, and you can schedule this free 15-minute screening with Marcelo and send him that information. And that way we can talk to you, see if you qualify, and then he will pass that information over to me. And then I can finalize and get back to you and potentially offer you a contract to work on a case together. All right, so it looks like we have James joining. All right, James, there you are.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Fantastic.
Awesome.
All right.
We have,
looks like
Renetta's going to be on the same screen as you.
She'll be joining soon.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to share my screen with this webinar and let's get started. All right. Empower your journey, exploring self-petitioning employment-based cases. So I'm super excited to be here. As you know, my name is Solmaz Tagavi. I'm with Tagavi Immigration Law. We are an immigration law firm that serves people all over the United States, all over the world. And I'm really excited to be working with some highly skilled professionals. And we want to help you bring your American dream to life and help you do what you're great at, because you're all very talented individuals, and you're here because you may qualify for what's called a self-petitioning employment-based case. So a way to get your green card on your own merit. All right. So James, do you want to give the introductions?
Can you see me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is James. I am James Chittenden, oneclickadvisor.com. We help people start businesses, market businesses, operate businesses, and get financing for business as well. One of the things that we do is we have a very vibrant business plan preparation service for people who are entrepreneurs or investors who are looking to come to the United States. And by working with us, you can strengthen your immigration case significantly. So oneclickadvisor.com, the entrepreneur's best friend. I'm James Chittenden. Good to meet you all.
And Renata, take it away.
Yeah, James is the person who gets you dollars, and Solmaz and I get you documented. My name is Renata Castro. I'm an immigration attorney, and I am of counsel to Till Immigration. And I am very excited to be here talking to all of you about self-sponsored immigration applications.
Awesome.
So Solmaz, I think that we can now go over the agenda. Just wanted to make sure that my screen wasn't stuck.
Yeah, so I'll go over the agenda. First, we're going to cover what is an EB-2 or National Interest Waiver, NIW. What are the requirements? What makes a strong EB case or application? How can TIL help you get your green card? All right. Renata, take it over.
I need you to mute yours. Perfect. So an EB-2 application is an opportunity that a professional, and when I say professional, it's not only someone who has a job, anyone who has professional experience, be it entrepreneurial or as an employee, that is highly desirable to the United States. After matter of Danazar, and in the United States, we have a system of laws that will follow not only statutes, which are, regulations, but also the jurisprudence of cases. Whenever cases are decided, they reinterpret or define how the courts and the administrative agency, in this case USCIS, will make a decision on a case. Prior to matter of Danazar, we had a case that was very restrictive for applicants called NISDOT, New York State Department of Transportation. When matter of Danazar was decided, I want to say about 3 or 4 years ago, a plethora of opportunity was open for individuals who have some professional qualifications, but most importantly, who can prove that they are coming to the United States to engage in an activity that has substantial merit and national importance. That foreign national is someone who is well positioned, well suited to further the proposed endeavor, and that on balance, it is in the best interest of the United States to waive the labor certification, which, for those of you who are not familiar, any individual can obtain an employment-based green card, well, any individual who fulfills admissibility requirements, if they have a job offer and they have a sponsoring company. However, it is very challenging to find this match of an individual who wants to hire you, but is also open to sponsoring the perm application. So here, this is why it's important. It's not only how incredible you are as a professional, but it's also why you come to the United States to solve a specific issue of national importance, and why it is in the benefit of the United States to waive that labor certification requirements. I like to say that an EB-2 is like an orange cut in half. If I only have one half, that does not make a whole orange. Why? On the next slide, we're going to be looking at the basic requirements. And what does it mean? You have to meet 3 of these 7 requirements in order to present the next stage of your application. The petition is done at once. However, the adjudicating official is going to look at your petition within 2 halves. The first half, do you meet 3 of the 7 criteria? And you do not have to have a college degree in order to pursue an EB2 national interest waiver. That's a misnomer, okay? You need to have an official academic record that shows that you have a degree, diploma, certificate, or a similar award from an institution of learning related to your area of exceptional ability. Why is this important? Especially in IT, where a lot of people realize that a college degree is not going to teach them the skills that they need in the workplace. They end up pursuing a lot of certifications. Certifications are more than sufficient as long as you can prove everything else. Letters from current or former employers documenting at least 10 years of full-time experience. So does it mean you have to always have had a top-notch job? No. I have to show that you have 10 years of professional experience that cumulatively reach the point of showing that you are that professional of exceptional ability. So if you were working as a cashier at McDonald's, and you end up becoming a top executive in efficiencies within quick service restaurants or fast food restaurants, that experience may be relevant, right? And it may count for the 10-year experience. However, if you are a very talented barber who has developed a new way to cut men's hair that's faster and cheaper, I'm just throwing, some scenarios out there. That experience as a cashier will not count towards your 10 years of experience. If you're self-employed, you most likely didn't have employers. So you can use client letters, vendor letters. There are other ways to prove the 10-year experience that don't necessarily involve just letters from employers. A license to practice your profession or a certification. Whenever you can show that you already have a license to practice that position in the United States, that's an easy way to meet this, one of the requirements within the 7 qualification requirements. Evidence that you have commanded a salary or other remuneration for services that demonstrates your exceptional ability. What does this mean? So if I am a barber and all barbers in Brazil make 5,000 reais a month, and I make 15,000 reais a month as a barber, that shows that I have exceptional ability. It's very important that when you're looking at this sprong, you're looking at salary in comparison to all the other professionals in your field, not in relation to your country condition. That's something that's important to know. Membership in a professional association, this is an easy one. So if you are a programmer and you can become a member of the National Association of International Programmers, that will satisfy this criteria. Recognition for your achievements and significant contributions to your industry or field by your peers, government entities, professionals, or business organizations. Have you received an award anywhere in the world? Have you been featured as, the most successful student from your college in your field of study? Have you been recognized by a professional association to which you're a member of? Those are all things. And once again, we do not have to submit only one evidence. If you have evidence of peer recognition, government recognition, professional recognition, you really want to submit as much documentation as you possibly can to give the immigration officer a fair chance at approving your case. And then other comparable evidence of eligibility. Some professions are just not going to have a cookie cutter process of recognition. So what is specific and what is valuable about you and your area that you can educate us as the lawyers and consultants working on your case? If, For barbers, the biggest thing is to be called to, cut hair live at the National Barbers Association conference, and you were invited. We want to submit that. So when I think of EB2s, national interest waivers, I think of the attorneys almost as a conductor of an orchestra. We are working with as a team because what we do is synthesize your expertise of your specific area to satisfy the requirements of the government. So your knowledge and expertise of your area of excellence in the United States is quite valuable to us when determining what kind of evidence we can submit. So here, you have to meet 3 of the 7 requirements. And the reason why they list 7 is because there is a wraparound opportunity where they say other comparable evidence. So it's really 6 criteria with an additional get out of jail free card that just lets you submit any evidence that you may have.
So Renata, thank you for that. And talking about these factors, right? You said essentially there's 6, right? We have the 7th catch-all factor, and you only have to focus on 3, or you only have to, at the very least, meet 3. When we talk about self-diagnosing ourselves for these types of cases, what do you recommend? What I've recommended for potential clients is to look at the criteria and then look at their resume and maybe start matching up where those things go, and then say, okay, what are the 3 strongest factors which we must meet? But of course, if we can hit more factors, maybe that would strengthen their case. What do you usually tell clients, or what do you think about that in order to kind of self-diagnose your case to see if this is something that could work for you?
So one of the things in an EB2, you want to, and this is why, and you will see towards the end of the presentation, that your CV is the start all of this application, because it gives you an opportunity to have a checklist of all of the documentation that you will have to present to us. I like to say that there is an easy, you can easily, anyone can easily meet 1 criteria, which is membership in a professional association. You want to get that out of the way, because if you're a member and you have proof of membership, USCIS cannot say you weren't a member, right? Why is this relevant? When you show evidence that you've commanded a salary or other remuneration for services that demonstrate your exceptional ability, this may be subject to interpretation. We don't want to give USCIS a lot of opportunity to interpret things. We want checklists. Yes, yes, no, no. It makes the adjudicator's job a lot easier. And if you make their lives easier, the likelihood of you being approved is higher. You certainly want to meet all of the criteria. Why? Does that mean your case is going to get approved with a higher likelihood? Yes and no. We will talk about that on the next slide. All it means is you're not wasting time with costly and timely requests for evidence. So if you show the officer your diplomas or certificates and that they relate to your area of exceptional ability, check. All the letters right away from current or former employees, vendors, check. Can you obtain a license? And sometimes, especially when you're talking about nurses, doctors, lawyers, it's a lot harder for these foreign professionals to obtain these licenses in the United States. And so that's not an option. So we want to make sure that we cover all the points that we can rather easily and fast in order to make sure that your petition can not only stand a higher probability of approval, but that it can be approved faster and you can have your green card in hands sooner rather than later.
And what about where you're located, or maybe where your employment experience or where your publications are? Does it matter if you have been living abroad or you're currently living abroad? Or is this something that they really want to see you accomplishing these factors or proving these factors if you're living in the United States?
And you know, that's the beauty of an EB2. It doesn't matter where you have had excellence. And more interestingly, there are no age limitations in EB2, and it doesn't matter when. We recently represented an engineer who was involved in some submarine retrofitting 20 years ago. He moved to Israel to start selling wine. And then at the tender age of 62, wanted to come to the United States. And we were able to secure an EB2 national interest waiver for him based on that engineering training. Of course, he had an extensive track record from 20 years ago, but they didn't expire. So if you are abroad, what a great opportunity for you to secure media coverage. Sometimes all it takes is approaching a professional association and saying, hey, I have an article I would like to publish on your newsletter. Are you open to submissions? I have in the past had clients work with PR firms. And I think James can speak on that a little bit, on securing awards and finding speaking opportunities. That strengthens your case. If you're a professional, sometimes EB2 is not going to be an option. EB2 can be very democratic, but it's not for everybody. I like to divide individuals into three categories: those who are not EB2's national interest waivers, those who will be an EB2 national interest waiver with the right evidence, and those who can file an EB2 national interest waiver right now. The difference between those who will be and those who currently are is just evidence. A lot of times you have a great case, but you don't have evidence. So don't be discouraged if that is your case.
Absolutely. And I think a seminar or a webinar just like this, where you can see what the criteria is all about, hear attorneys talk about what it takes. And if you're not there, it can be something that you can develop, and you have, the instructions or the path to, how could I potentially apply for the NIW? And you can be out of the country, but if you are in the United States, what are some things to consider? The first thing that comes to mind for me is that you must maintain status. You cannot be out of status. So if you are in the United States, you're on an F student visa, maybe you're on a J visa, you could have an employer that you are working for on H-1B, but you cannot go out of status. So if you are in the United States and you are developing your resume, developing this criteria for an NIW, that's just one thing to consider. Anything else that you can think of, Renata?
I believe that when you look at an EB2, you really think of it as you are selling yourself and your expertise to the government. What is incredible about you as a professional? How can you document that? So if you received a scholarship and you are a doctorate student, and as a result, you are able to fund research that has now been adopted as the standard of care or quality in your area, that can be a major advantage in your EB2 application. But you have to remember this: the United States immigration law does not offer a lot of opportunity for individuals without experience. Experience will trump education any day. Why? They want you to show proof that you've done something similar in the past abroad, and that is why you are well positioned to do it again, better and bigger in the United States. So think about that. What are the hurdles in your home country? And I actually wanted to ask, I'm going through this great attendee list. If all of you could drop in the chat where you're watching us from, you know, and what's your nationality. I see Alexander, Brittany, Lally, Marcelo, Sogol, Harry. So if you got into, so I'll use an example. Brazil has the National Institute for Science and Research, and the federal government pays for certain individuals who have promising research to come to the United States, all expenses paid. That is a major honor. I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people apply, and the government selects maybe 5 or 10 or 20. That is an honor. Yes, see Alexander, who is in the United States now with an F1 on a STEM OPT. If you are in the United States on an F or OPT, you certainly want to look not only at what you studied in the United States, but if you had a professional career abroad, you can match that. So we have a lot of clients who come to the United States on a student visa to improve their English and, quite frankly, to figure out a way to stay in the country legally. I say that the F1 is a test drive of American life. So it doesn't mean that if you were in the United States studying English, that whatever experience or education you had abroad is dismissed.
Brenna, I wanted to bring up the STEM field. So USCIS recently put out some policies that they seem to favor NIWs for people who are in the STEM field. Can you tell us more about what that means? And what if you're not in the STEM field? What if you are a creative, you're in the arts or music or filming industry? What does it mean for you?
That's a great question. I wanted to go to the next slide where we can actually approach that. And once again, there are only 5 professions that have been codified in US immigration law that the United States recognize that we will perpetually have a shortage of these professions. And as long as you can show that you're a licensed professional and you have a job offer, which is just a letter, you're in. What are those professions? Nurse, speech therapist, physical therapist, audiologist, and a physician assistant. And that's under Schedule A. Everyone else is bundled together, either with a job offer on an EB3 or EB2 classification, or as an EB2, with or without a job offer. Why is it important? The United States government did not say that everyone who has a degree in STEM will get a free ride, and all you have to do is present your diploma. It does, the government has provided much guidance and directives to the immigration agencies that they are to use all their resources for those who qualify for an EB2 national interest waiver or any other kind of employment-based green card, and they are in the area of STEM. The biggest challenge in an EB2 national interest application, national interest waiver application, is here. You fulfilled the 3 requirements. Great, beautiful, that was easy. Membership, 10 years of experience, academic record, boom, you're good. This is where the other half of the orange becomes a little tougher. You have to come up with a proposed endeavor. What is a proposed endeavor? It's what you plan on doing in the United States as a professional that has substantial merit and national importance. There's so much encompassed in this small sentence. So remember I talked about my client who, or our client who's an engineer, and he was in the business of wine and wanted to come to the United States. He was a STEM professional, but his proposed endeavor was to start a consulting firm providing safety training in submarine utilization. It was an activity that had substantial merit. Why? Because it impacted national security. It created jobs through what's called an econometric impact. That the United States is behind other world economies when it comes to submarine utilization and development. You can make the arguments, but you have to show that what you will do impacts the United States on a problem that it has or that it will have if it doesn't do something about it. And then you have to show why you are well positioned. Not, my mom thinks I'm great at this. Why do you have the skills necessary to do this? So I'll give another example of an EB2 we got approved. Doctor who did not have a US medical license. He came to the United States on an approved EB2 national interest waiver based on his experience implementing the use of telehealth and compliance in emergency rooms. Why? Pandemic showed the United States is very behind in access to telehealth care. He had done it in the past, had the expertise to do it, had in his case a business plan for the consulting firm that he was going to start. Also, it's a STEM endeavor, but STEM is just the icing on the cake. You still are going to have to work on making your presentation one that shows that your proposed endeavor is one that has substantial merit and national importance, that you are well positioned to advance that endeavor. So why you? And that on balance, when you look at all of the requirements, it is in the best interest of the United States to give you a green card without the requirement to a labor certification. So for the record, during the Biden administration, 2 directives have been signed in regards to prioritization of certain petitions. It was STEM and entrepreneurship. Why? Job creation and capital raising. If you can marry those two, even if it's at a smaller level, you just have, it doesn't have to be a enormous business, no. But we have noticed that anything in STEM that also involves entrepreneurship, even if you were never an entrepreneur in the past, but you have the technical expertise to develop that business, those are very strong applications.
And speaking of very strong applications, I just wanted to make a point about the work being of national importance. So if you are doing, let's say, research, or you are with a startup company and you are developing a medical device, if you or the company or startup that you're working for is receiving US federal grants in order to continue doing that work, for example, the US military has given you, your startup that you're working for, a grant in order to continue the research on some sort of product because they need the product on the field in the military, or they need the product in aircraft, military aircraft, or not just US federal grants, but also if the US government is offering contract work to you. For example, you are a physician that is doing research on COVID-19 long-term repercussions, and they have hired you to come in and train certain individuals in the military, or to come in and be a panelist for a US government entity. So these are kind of no-brainers, I would say, but that's when you're going to see that in reality, my work or where I'm working, it's of national interest because the US government in some way is actually feeding me money to continue to do this, or is needing me to come in and train and educate people about this sort of work.
So
Go ahead.
When we look at the application, and I think we can go to the next slide. There are strategies that can help you build a successful application. As I mentioned, it's a group effort when we look at an EB2 national interest waiver. And I wanted to have James speak on this next slide because sometimes a business strategist is the person who will help take you from point A to point B, along with the immigration lawyer, to create a better documented application. Solmas talked about grant funding. And a lot of times grant funding is just not available. Is there a money amount that establishes the likelihood of success for an application? And the answer is no. Sometimes you can use what's called an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding of a private person just saying, if you start this business and your green card gets approved, I would commit X amount of dollars to your venture. But I really want to hear James, as a business consultant, discuss the role of a business strategist, a business plan, and an expert opinion letter in these applications.
Hello, everyone. I am James Chittenden, oneclickadvisor.com. Once again, that's oneclickadvisor.com. We help people get financing for their businesses, but we also help, and that often requires a business plan. I have a long background as a stockbroker and as a business banker. So I lent money to businesses as a business banker many years ago. I've also taught thousands of people how to write business plans. And based on that, I can tell you that a business plan, also because I've written them for EB2 national interest waiver applicants, I can tell you that a business plan can greatly increase your chances of approval. However, if it's not done correctly, it can decrease your chances of approval. So first of all, why do this? Why write a business plan? For one thing, it's often required if the proposed endeavor is a business. You need to be able to tell the story about how that business is going to work. And in order to tell that story, it should do three things. Number one, when I write business plans for clients, or when my company does, we keep in mind we actually have several clients. It's not just the applicant. It's the applicant, of course, has an interest in getting the petition approved, but also for a successful business. This isn't just a box you check on the way to getting approved. This is also a roadmap. It's a way to make your mistakes in business on paper before you make those mistakes in real life with real capital and real people. So number one, the client is a client. Number two, the immigration attorney is a client. The immigration attorney very much wants you to succeed. They want you to get approved. They're on your side. That's what you hire them for. They are your friend taking you through this process, your advocate. And they have an interest in making sure that you get approved so that you go back and you tell your friends that Solmas got me approved, Renata got me approved, and they have an interest in expanding their practice. They can only do that if they serve you correctly. It's my job to help immigration attorneys do that. Number three, another one of your clients, or another one of our clients, is the USCIS. I'm looking to, with your business plan, I am looking to give them more reasons, more justifications to approve your petition and remove justifications to deny the petition. So we have to, they're a client as well, and we treat them accordingly. And finally, if you are, number four, is anyone who is partnering with your business, supplying to your business, or funding your business. It could be a venture capitalist. It could be an angel investor. It could be your mom or dad back home. It could be a friend, or it could be a bank lending money to you. We need to be able to tell the story about how you are going to make a profit for yourself, how you are going to be able to provide jobs, because that's this is a national interest waiver. You have to show how you're going to have an economic impact on, with your proposed endeavor, with your business. So what does that look like? Of course, it means jobs that you are going to create. You're going to be, putting US citizens to work. You're going to be putting people to work. Not only that, but you are going to be creating contracts, and you're going to be giving business to your suppliers. And what does that mean? That means that they too will be able to employ people, feed their families, and there's a ripple effect that goes beyond just your business. And we have to show that ripple effect. We have to tell the story of it. So how do you do that? Number one, of course, as I said, a business plan is an opportunity to make your mistakes on paper. Whenever I write a business plan, I work extensively with the client. I want to make sure that their business is actually workable. I draw on my own experience as an investor and as a stockbroker and as a business banker, and also as a consultant for business owners for many years, say what can work and what can't. For example, in order for it to be credible, it's okay to demonstrate that the business may actually lose money in the first year or two of operations. I've seen business plans where someone comes in and they expect to make, just within a year of opening their doors, $500,000 in profit. And then in year two, they're going to make $3 million in profit. And then in year three, they're going to make $10 million in profit. These eye-popping numbers that look like you were on cocaine when you wrote the business plan. That doesn't fool anyone. It doesn't impress anyone. So that's one of those things that actually draws away from the credibility of the business plan. Number two, or actually number three, is it should lay out all of the challenges and opportunities that the business expects to encounter. And those problems and challenges and opportunities can always be sorted into one of three areas. Number one, marketing, because marketing is often not what people think it's going to be. Marketing is what brings in the customers. It really is that simple. So what is that? The 4 P's of marketing. If I believe I saw someone who was getting an MBA. The 4 P's of marketing are price, product, promotion, and place, right, Lally? Get those things right, you'll become a billionaire. Easier said than done, right? But you have to find the right people who are going to want to buy your product and service, and tell the story about how you're going to reach them. How are you going to talk to them? Are you going to price for them appropriately? Number two, operations. Operations keeps the customers. We want to talk about how the business is going to run from day to day and create a reliable system that customers can count on. It's like any business that you use on a regular basis, that you like, that you use regularly, that gives you a consistent experience every time, that you like. Why is that? What investment do you think that business goes into, or puts? What investment do you think they? What investment do you think they actually put into the business in order to give you those same outcomes? And not only that, but you also want to be able to tell the story about how the business is going to be able to earn revenue in your absence. At some time, you got to sleep sometime, and you got to go on vacation sometime. Will the business be able to keep on earning revenue without you? If so, then you have a well-operated business. So marketing brings in the customers, operations keeps the customers, and finance keeps the score and keeps you paid. How did you do in this week? How did you do this month? How did you do this past year? You have to be able to show what that looks like. So if you want to make $120,000 a year, $120,000 a year is $10,000 a month. $10,000 a month divided by 20 working days, Monday through Friday, that's $500 a day. Now we're going to go back to the marketing plan. We're going to talk how you're going to make that $500 a day. It really is that simple. So we do not take an academic approach. That's another turnoff for approving authorities, and it's also a turnoff for bankers. So Lally, or anyone that's ever been to business school, understands how academic business looks. It's too often regarded as a spectator sport. instead of a real living, breathing entity. So as a result, it's very professorial, very theoretical, and probably has a whole lot of unnecessary math and statistics, okay? Now, statistics are necessary, but you have to be able to tell the story in the business plan in a very conversational tone, not unlike the way we're all talking to each other right here today. It should be conversational. It should be Sesame Street style. I don't know who here has watched Sesame Street before, but it needs to be as simple as possible. Also, as Renata had talked about, we have to talk about how your proposed endeavor, in other words, your business, does have substantial merit and national importance. We talked about engineering, we talked about STEM. You may or may not be aware of it, but the United States definitely or desperately and definitely needs to upgrade its infrastructure. Airports, sewer lines, highways, power grid, all that. And that requires civil engineers. But majoring in engineering is very hard. Not a lot of people do it. I think if you're familiar with the US academic scene, not a lot of people opt to major in engineering. Most people want to graduate and become TikTok stars in the United States. Unfortunately, that's how it goes. The result is that due to retirements, the United States is about 2,000 engineers short every single year. And if we're not going to graduate the engineers in this country, we're going to have to let them immigrate in. So let's make the case that you are going to be one of those 2,000 engineers that can help the United States upgrade its airports, its sewer lines, its potable water, its roads, and its power grid. So in that case, a statistic is worth it. We have to show that, yes, there's a very powerful need, and yes, you are the person who is best qualified, best positioned to make that happen. So another necessary part of a business plan is actually humanizing the applicant, humanizing you if you're applying for it. That's where media coverage comes in. So if I'm going to write a business plan, I'm not only going to show projected financials, your projected profit and loss, your projected business, your projected balance sheet, your projected cash flow, and show how you're going to meet your goals, but I'm also going to put pictures of you and your family that you want to bring here as well. There are countless examples of people who just want to come to the United States and create a better life for themselves because the opportunity simply isn't there in their home country. Pardon me. So I'll put pictures of you and your family. I'll put pictures of some of the work that you've done. I'll tell the story about not only how well qualified you are, but also that you're a good person in general. That's very important. That's something that pretty much every government employee, or every government employee, and make no mistake, USCIS hearing officers are government employees. They're screened personally. They're screened for criminal records, they're screened for character. And of course, they are only interested in approving people whenever possible who meet a high level of character, of personal character. So it's important to tell that story as well. So we'll put pictures of someone's past work, of their family, sometimes even their children, and talk about how the United States is just overall better off for having let this person in. Also, a business plan is very unique, just like a business is. Therefore, no cutting and pasting. Don't just take someone's, and I've made this mistake before. I didn't actually make the mistake of cutting and pasting, but I got corrected on cutting and pasting an email, and the client was gracious enough to remind me of it. It taught me a lesson. I did that a long time ago. Don't cut and paste. Certainly don't do it on a business plan, because the last thing you want to do is cut and paste the wrong business, the wrong name, the wrong country. That can be embarrassing. So a business plan is for someone who is looking to start a business as their proposed endeavor. Now, what if someone is looking to come to the United States and get a job? They want to get a job. Well, that doesn't really require a business plan. It requires something else called a professional plan. A professional plan more or less tells the same story as a business plan. Also, you'll need something else. You're going to need a professional opinion letter. A professional opinion letter is written by someone who has a great deal of credibility. A professional opinion letter could be written by a professor in the case of a STEM applicant, science, technology, science, what does STEM stand for? Science, technology, engineering,
and medicine.
Yes, or medicine. Yeah,
mathematics.
medicine. So in the case of that, it could be best to have someone who is a professor to write that professional opinion letter. One example is someone who was studying nanotechnology, or someone who had been a professor of nanotechnology back in their home country. They wanted to move to the United States because they wanted to come to the United States, and we made their application as a nanotechnology specialist. That often requires maybe a professor of nanotechnology in either their home country or in the United States, talking about how this person knows what they're doing. Now, I wasn't too familiar with nanotechnology when I helped this person with their case. And so what I did was I studied it. And it turns out that nanotechnology is the study of small portions of an atom, sometimes something that is no wider than a human hair. For example, silk is spun by moths, yet is very, very strong. And it takes a nanotechnologist to understand how that works, to look at how silk works, the molecular structure of it. And by doing so, they can make much better baseball bats. They can make better body armor for police or military. And those things are definitely in the United States national interest. Not only that, it's pretty cool. So we try to tell the story of a person like that. And you're also trying to give the reader a bit of an experience to make it fun, make the reader feel a little bit smarter after having read what you're doing. By doing so, the reader will have been entertained. Maybe you take the reader back to when they were in the 7th grade and they were watching Bill Nye the Science Guy. You've educated the reader and you've entertained the reader. And by doing so, you've touched the reader on a human level. And that will always boost your ability to get approved.
Awesome,
So,
James.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're coming around the last 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes here. So I wanted to ask a few questions. So how does someone know that they need to work with you? Is that something that the lawyer will recommend? And maybe Renata, you can ask or you can answer this question. If you're opening a business, do you need a business plan? So when would an applicant potentially know that they would need the services of James's company? And as we move through to the last slide here, if any other questions come up, as we're going to have an open Q&A session at the end, please drop your questions in the chat, and I'll start off with a couple more questions, and then we'll get to your questions as well. But yeah, let's go back to that question. Renata, how would someone know as an applicant that they need James's services, and is that something that the attorney will arrange?
Well, if anyone is starting a business as part of their proposed endeavor, they need a business plan. That's going to be a must. If you are in the United States and you're STEM, well, if you're trying to come to the United States as a STEM professional, I urge you to consider the probabilities of starting a business. Why? You get 2 bites of the apple. Remember, Biden administration issued 2 directives to increase foreign entrepreneurship and to increase the number of STEM professionals who can come to the United States legally. If you are starting a business, you want a business plan. Conversely, if you're coming to the United States to look for a job in your area of expertise, you're going to need a professional plan. And a professional plan, and I think I put it in the chat, is a business plan for your career. If you are a coding engineer or a software engineer who specializes in AI, in artificial intelligence, and you can show that the availability of a professional of your caliber creates a ripple effect in the economy, and that's where those statistics that James was mentioning come in. You want to hire a professional like James to devise a professional plan so that the immigration attorneys, and that's the team here at TIL, have more than adequate evidence to put together a package that increases your likelihood of success.
And James mentioned photos of your family, that you're overall a good person. Can your family benefit from this type of case? If you're living abroad, can you also bring your spouse, your children? Is that a possibility?
Yes, and for some of you who are here on the seminar, if you have heard of the EB-5 program, you're basically getting a $1.1 million award for less than a fraction of that. Why? You get to work legally in the United States, bring your family, and just have all the rights and privileges of an individual who does an EB-5 investment. So who is considered family for this kind of application? Husband, wife, legally married, children who are single and under the age of, and by single, they could be divorced, they could be widowed, but they have to be single, legally single at the time of adjudication, and they must be under 21 years of age when the application is submitted.
What if the applicant doesn't speak English? Is that a barrier?
That's a great question. Fluency in English is not a requirement because you're not going to be interviewed on the merits of your application. So that is why a business plan and a professional plan are so important. We have one opportunity to make a positive impression on that adjudications officer. We really want to give him all the documentation that we can to make an argument with statistics, with figures. So you do not need to speak English whenever you're submitting the application, whenever you are getting the green card. The only immigration benefit that requires fluency in English is naturalization, which is when you are eligible to become a US citizen.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, here are some cases that we've recently had approved. I'm going to go over them quickly, and then we're going to move to the Q&A, so make sure you drop your questions in the chat. An entrepreneur starting a business increasing efficiency of audiologists' offices. An engineer specializing in oil supply chain. A gospel singer/journalist approved based on community impact. An HR consultant starting a business providing services in the area of multicultural hiring and training. An electrical engineer specializing in wind and solar power. A foreign doctor with extensive track record of implementation of telehealth compliance programs. And a STEM entrepreneur who developed a server load balancing solution utilizing AI. It's pretty cool, pretty cool work. All right, so next steps, in order to see if you qualify for a case like this, we have dropped the screening link. So there will be a free 15-minute screening. You can use the Calendly link to find the best time that works for us as well as yourself. And also I've dropped Marcelo, who I introduced in the beginning, his email, it's intake@tillimmigration.com. We want to see your resume or CV and your LinkedIn profile. So if you can send us that before your screening, that's going to help us be able to see if you qualify for a potential case. All right, so I had a couple more questions. We have a couple of attendees that have entered on a student visa. If you had a student visa, is that going to help you for an NIW case?
It'll depend on what you're studying. But if you're studying in the United States, having a US degree is not the most impactful thing you can do on your application. It is better to have a doctorate degree abroad than to have a bachelor's degree in the United States in comparison. So we get a lot of applicants who say, oh, but I went to school in the United States. This means something. And it's funny because for all of those of us who, are foreigners, I'm Brazilian, Somas, Iranian. When you say we went to the school in the United States, wow, it's a big deal. But when you're in the United States and you say, I went to school in the United States, great. Now, if you went to Harvard, if you went to Cornell, if you went to one of the top 10 and you were accepted with a scholarship, let's say you're doing some research or a grant, that can make a difference. But once again, it's not the going to school in the United States that will be the most important part of your application.
Thank you. What about after getting approved? Your NIW is approved. Do I need to work in the area of exceptional ability? Meaning I made this case to get my green card in this field, and then once I got it, I want to change. Is that going to be a problem?
That's a great question. And what the law says is you need to have the intent to develop this proposed endeavor. So think of Netflix and Blockbuster. I may be dating myself. Some of you probably don't know what Blockbuster is. There was an ancient time where we went to a place to get movies, and now you use your phone. And why is this relevant? If your proposed endeavor was to start a Blockbuster business and the market conditions as the cases move along are just not conducive, the government's not going to hold you, well, you said you were going to start a Blockbuster, now you must. The question is, did you have the intent? Did you take at least meaningful steps? And meaningful steps could be doing business research. Did you hire a business consultant? So for example, you hire James to write your business plan. That's a substantial step in furthering your endeavor. It's a promise. It's not a contract. So when you get your green card, unlike an H-1B, you can really do whatever you want in the United States. You can work 2 jobs, you can go to school, you can travel back and forth. You have all the rights and privileges of any green card holder. So maybe you need some time to get some experience in the United States, get a job, get your family, on their feet financially. You are not obligated, but you must have had the intent to develop that proposed endeavor.
All right, wonderful. I want to quickly introduce Marcelo. I meant to introduce him in the beginning. Marcelo, if you can give a quick introduction about yourself so everyone knows who they can expect to talk to for the next steps.
Yes, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Hope you can see me also. Well, first of all, the opportunity, and I just sent you all my the information how to contact me. As you can see, this is a really exciting opportunity, and we would like to see you soon and speak with you. I will be the ones that open the doors on the TIL team, and we're really looking forward to this opportunity with you. So just feel free to reach out to me. You have all the links there on the chat, and I hope to hear from you soon. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Marcelo. So I'm going to pose one more question. It's going to be our last question, but take a look at our screening link. Make sure you copy it. It will be gone after we close the Zoom meeting. We will be reaching out to you as well. You also have Marcelo's email. Like I said, we want to see your resume, your LinkedIn page. But the last question, I'm going to kind of take 2 people's questions and put them together for you, Renata. So could you explain generally, I know it's quite loaded question, but what are the case processing times? Or, as this individual has asked, like, what would be the timeline for someone who's going to graduate next year from a STEM program to apply for the EB2 NIW visa?
It's a great question. If your graduation is an essential requirement of qualifying for the EB2, you need to wait to graduate. But remember how we discussed in the beginning that it's really all of your life, professional life history. If you're in the United States and you're going to be graduating an MBA, but you already have a degree in business administration and you were a successful entrepreneur in your country or abroad, you don't have to wait for graduation. And quite honestly, you want to get the ball rolling now, because when you graduate, guess what you will want to do? Work. And you're going to get, an OPT for a year, maybe a little longer if you're a STEM OPT qualified, but you want to file an EB2 as soon as you're eligible. Demand has been at an all-time high, and I actually don't anticipate decline in demand. I think there will be an increase in demand. And from filing to adjudication to a green card, I would say anywhere between a year to a year and a half. An EB2 application now does have the option for premium processing. So it's important to know, premium processing does not mean you get a green card in 2 or 3 weeks. It means the government gives you either an approval or a question on your eligibility. Those are things you want to think about when you are filing your application and investing your money. I think a lot of times applicants are very anxious, so are we, but premium processing doesn't always mean your case is going to be approved as fast, or your green card is going to be received as fast as we would like you to.
All right, awesome. And I want to ask this question because this individual has a Brazilian background, and I know Renata has a lot of Brazilian clientele. So I'm just going to ask this last question. Any recommendations from a male from Brazil, 27 years old with 2 years experience in the nursing field?
My suggestion for anyone who is in the nursing field is to hire a consulting company that can help you validate your license in the US. Because if you are a nurse, physical therapist, speech, so it's nurse audiologist, speech therapist, physical therapist, or a physician assistant, you qualify under Schedule A. The demand in the United States for nurses is behind 46 years, meaning it would take 46 years of every single nursing school in the United States graduating their students to capacity for the United States to catch up with the nursing demand. So because EB2 is a higher standard, you have to consider the following. I want to say this as we wrap up. If you are an outstanding nurse who developed some kind of program and you qualify for Schedule A and for EB2, do both. You can file as many applications as you are eligible for. Do you have an employer and you qualify for an EB2 national interest waiver? File both. It's better to choose from 2 approvals than to fight for just one.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your expertise, Renata and James. Thank you everyone who's attended. I just want to make one last plug. There's a lot going on in the US. There is the potential of a government shutdown. We are coming up on a presidential election. All of these things affect immigration. Immigration is one of the fastest changing areas of law, with a ton of deadlines and a lot of intricacies. You may have potential family cases as well, or you may qualify for other things. So your case may be a little bit more complicated than what we've presented today, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions. We are super excited to work with highly skilled foreign nationals like yourselves. I super appreciate everyone joining our webinar today. Please check out our website. We have social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're always updating you with new information and videos to help preserve your future, preserve your career in the United States. I wanted to share something funny that Renata said last night as we were preparing. We were talking about immigration to the United States, and she was like, there's nothing like it. And I was like, well, what about Canada? I'm Iranian myself, and you know, a lot of Iranians have difficulties coming to the US. Everyone's going to Canada. You know, they have a great healthcare system. She said, Canada is vanilla ice cream. No one wakes up in the middle of the night and wants vanilla ice cream. But America is like Rocky Road, cookie dough. America is a very unique place. It's obviously not perfect, but if you really want to make your American dream come true, and likely it's probably tied to the work or business that you do, we want to help you do that. So give us a call, check out our free screening, send us an email, add us on social media, and we can't wait to work with you. Thanks, everyone.